Welcome to Love Factually, the podcast that analyzes rom-coms and romantic films using the science of close relationships. I'm Paul Eastwick, author of Bonded by Evolution. I'm here with Eli Finkel, author of The All or Nothing Marriage. Eli, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Four Weddings and a Funeral, 1994's very British rom-com written by Richard Curtis, starring Hugh Grant, and boasting an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. Some of the themes we'll explore are whether wedding guests are looking to hook up, how friend networks facilitate relationship formation, and what happens to those networks when people fall in love.
And fair warning, we'll be spoiling this movie today. So if you don't know that bonking is a bit like table tennis, only with slightly smaller balls, then go ahead and watch this movie and come back. So Eli, who are the key characters and couples in this movie?
The film's protagonist is Charles, played brilliantly by Hugh Grant. He's charming, awkward, and commitment phobic. His primary love interest is Carrie, played less brilliantly by Andie MacDowell. She's attractive, sophisticated, and interpersonally reckless. Charles has many friends, including Fiona, who is elegant, witty, and haunted by unrequited love. Scarlett, Charles's flatmate, who is quirky, adorable, and loyal. Gareth, who is older, big-hearted, and hilarious. And Matthew, Gareth's life partner, who is sensitive, introspective, and wise. Charles's brother, David, is affectionate and a fierce advocate for authenticity. He's also deaf, which factors into the plot. And finally, there's Father Gerald, played by Rowan Atkinson, who officiates one of the weddings with earnest and bumbling genius. So, Paul, those are the chess pieces. Are you ready to give us 1 minute on how the film moves them across the board?
How familiar do you think younger audiences are with Mr. Bean?
I don't know.
When I saw him, I was like, I have not thought about this guy in decades.
Yeah, but he does what he does better than anybody can do it.
He does it. All right, count me down.
On your mark, get set, go.
Charles is a charming but chronically late Englishman who seems allergic to commitment. At wedding number 1, he meets Carrie, an American guest, and the two seem to have immediate chemistry and spend the night together, but he doesn't see her again until wedding number 2. This wedding features Lydia and Bernard, friends who got together at wedding number 1, but in the intervening few months, now Carrie is engaged to a wealthy older man named Hamish. Despite this, Charles and Carrie flirt and again end up having sex. Later, while shopping for Carrie's wedding gift, Charles runs into Carrie and she takes him to try on wedding dresses. They talk about prior sex partners. He sort of confesses his love, but nevertheless, Carrie and Hamish get married at wedding number 3. At this wedding, their friend Gareth dies suddenly of a heart attack, and we get his partner Matthew's moving eulogy to him at the titular funeral. Then cut to wedding number 4 between Charles and his ex Hen, but then Carrie shows up and tells Charles that she and Hamish are done. Confused, Charles, standing at the altar, is prodded by his brother to admit he loves someone else, and Hen naturally punches him in the face. Later that day, Carrie comes to apologize, and he asks her not to marry him for the rest of their lives, and they kiss in the rain and cue photo montage. I was late.
Man, that was 60.3 seconds. I thought that was a heroic effort there at the end.
Yep. I wanted to get in the photo montage.
That's great.
That killed me.
Yeah.
Eli, what is your relationship to this movie?
Do you know that you and I have been doing this show long enough now that I can have relationships to movies that are based on our previous episodes?
Yeah, right. There you go.
One of the big ones for me is, on a couple of different occasions, you and I have been talking about movies. I think 10 Things I Hate About You was one of them. And you set up this like empirical paradigm that's like, okay, you have a bunch of people rating the same romantic partner. So all of my exes, you always made it about me. Eli, all of your exes are rating how good you were as a boyfriend. And I remember when you set that up, I
can't wait to do that study. I will be doing it.
I had
exes, please write to me. lovefactuallypod@gmail.com.
Please don't. I had this like panic, and you said, well, we can't do that study. And I remember saying, thank God. But the whole time you and I were having that conversation, I was thinking of the scene in this movie where Charlie is seated at the table at the wedding with all of his ex-girlfriends, and it is a nightmare.
I believe you and her went out there once.
That's right.
Charles was vile. He insisted on cracking jokes all the time I was ill.
I was just trying to cheer you up, dear.
Oh, you're that Veronica. Which Veronica? Charlie?
Remember Bombay?
When Charles and I were going out, he told me he'd had this interesting journey around India with vomiting Veronica. I think that was it.
I don't remember ever mentioning it. Maybe I did.
Oh, come on, Charles. I don't think I've ever been out with anyone less discreet.
Well, I think that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, isn't it, Marv?
It is not.
I remember you going on about this girl, Helena, was it? Whose mother made a pass at you.
I remember this. You couldn't work it out whether it would be impolite not to accept her advances. That's right.
This is a sad moment there for Charlie.
What? So you don't want to be at a table with all your
It
exes?
sounds
like
so
Charlie was?
terrifying.
I agree. I don't think I'd want to be in Charlie's shoes. That was a particularly bad wedding for him.
Oh, God. Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen this movie, and honestly,
Oh,
I was
wow.
kind of blown away
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
by all the ideas in here. Huh? There's this one really funny line by Gareth. I mean, God, everybody has so many funny lines in
Yeah,
this.
but Gareth in particular is so
But
funny.
he's got this funny line where he's looking around at his friends and he realizes he'd like to go to one of their weddings, and he tells them, "Go forth and conjugate, find husbands and wives."
Yeah.
And I like this juxtaposition of having sex on the mind, but also having long-term designs on your
right.
mind too. And we're going to talk about this
Yeah.
in the later segments. But so my friends in college, I think I've told you about this. I often hung out with a group. There were 4 of us, 2 men, 2 women. And the 2 women in this group would do this little bit before we'd go out on a Saturday night to the diviest, grossest bar you could imagine.
Yeah.
And as they would get ready for the evening, they would, in all earnestness, say to us and to each other, "We're going to meet our husbands tonight." And I just thought that shit was hilarious.
It's great.
It captures this idea of like, we know this is probably not the place to go to meet your husbands, and yet who the hell knows?
Could
When
happen.
people are hooking up,
Yeah.
anything can happen. So this is one of the things I really like about this movie. But let's start with you. Tell us, what does this movie get right about
A
close
lot of
relations?
stuff. I mean, I really
Yeah.
enjoyed bringing this love factually lens to the movie. Now, I have seen this movie multiple times. I remember it fondly, and I enjoyed it again this time too. But one of the things that was interesting to me from this perspective is this tension that exists between prioritizing one's long-standing friendships and really immersing oneself in a new love romantic relationship. So really falling in love, maybe getting married. And the part that's really interesting, so in the end, for the 4th wedding that ends up being kind of a debacle, Fiona...
They're mostly debacles.
They're all debacles, you're right. But this one is a mess. Charlie is supposed to be getting married to Hen, and Fiona toasts him. She says, "I'd like to propose a toast to my Charlie and his beautiful girl on this tragic day. So be happy and don't forget us." Well, is Fiona right to be concerned about the idea that now that Charlie is getting married, he might kind of disappear on them a little bit? And the answer is, on average, yes.
Yeah,
she is absolutely right. And so one of the big studies in this space, this is a cross-sectional study, but it looks at people's best friendship networks. They list up to 5 best friends. And what they find in this research is that people list fewer best friends as time goes on, as they get older. But that decline is driven largely by people starting a new romantic relationship or getting married. And one thing that's especially interesting in that study is when people get divorced, they then go back to their friends and hang out more, and they get remarried, and they see the effect again that the friends get dropped.
There it is. It's like turning into the primary relationship and turning away from
totally
the friends.
what it is. And in fact, I love the way you said that because that's the mechanism that has the most support in the literature. So in a subsequent study, they followed people over the course of 12 years, and they saw that people showed a 25% reduction in how much time they spent with the people who had been their best friends after they got married. And what's wild about it is you don't see similar reductions for things like neighbors and acquaintances. And so the idea is there's this substitutability between best friendships and your spouse, and that's why you end up pulling away from your friendship networks when you get married.
It's fascinating. It's kind of tragic, too, because the other thing about friendship networks, and I think this is also reflected pretty well in the movie, is that friendship networks are really a main way that we get to meet new potential romantic partners. So there's a bunch of findings showing that the more friends that heterosexual folks have of the other gender, the gender that they're typically attracted to, they're more likely to form a romantic relationship in the coming year.
Yeah, because they're conduits, right?
Yeah, right. It's like the conduits. And it's not just having more friends, because your same gender friends, again, for heterosexuals, the same number of same gender friends is not relevant.
Interesting.
Okay, that's just uncorrelated with what's going to happen to you. So it's like the other gender part of the network, and that's what's kind of cool about this movie, is it really is this interesting mixed gender, mixed sexuality network where I just can't believe this was 1994.
Yeah,
and we were getting this. It's really neat. Of course, this carries some risks, too, because then you might need to share a network with some exes, which, is your nightmare, but is something that people in reality would need to be able to live with to use this kind of approach.
You may recall that one of the papers that really underscored just how much of a role that online dating is playing these days in how we meet potential partners. The title of that paper was Disintermediating Your Friends. Now, friends are still playing a huge role, but the authors of that paper were exactly right, that this is the way that through most of the 20th century and into the 21st century that people were meeting. And you're seeing it in this movie, this 1994 snapshot. It is a perfect representation of how people meet partners.
And one important additional element here is that sometimes we argue about aren't people dating their friends? Like they're falling in love with their friends? Like you find that a little weird. I think I find it a little bit less weird. But what's actually happening, it doesn't have to be somebody in your peer group specifically. So, we see one of those in this movie, right? The Bernard and Lydia, they are in the same peer group, and they all of a sudden fall for each other.
Even though
in hilarious
she says
fashion.
that she's never going to be desperate enough to go for him, but apparently she is, because he's good in the sack.
Yep, he had it going. But what you see, if you track these networks over time, you take a snapshot at time one, and then you look to see a year later who is dating whom, the people who get into relationships, what most of them are doing is they're traversing 3 or 4 steps to get to their current partner. So it's friend of a friend of a friend.
Interesting.
Or friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. So that's the number of steps that a typical person would travel from singledom to being partnered over the course of a year. So it's not literally you date your closest friends in the world, although that can happen, as we see here. The modal pattern is you move a few steps. And again, that's what most of the other folks are doing in this movie. They're meeting friends of friends at these weddings, and then they hit it off, and we get all these couples.
It's interesting because there's a lot of, I think, very legitimate hand-wringing among people who are single and looking to be how do I do it? I've been single for a while. I just can't meet the right sorts of people. And I think the implication of what you're saying is something to the effect of socialize a lot with friends.
Yeah.
And maybe ideally friends of the gender of the people that you like to date.
In fact, in my forthcoming book, Bonded by
Evolution,
I do talk about this quite a bit. That, again, it's not like you have to toss your phone into the ocean and forswear all app usage forever. You can use the apps too. But there is a little bit of this lost art of socializing, not just with your closest friends in the world, but with those peripheral intersecting groups. And, I think that's helpful. And honestly, it's rewarding in and of itself, even if it doesn't lead immediately to a relationship.
Yeah, it's better than sitting there swiping one way or the other by yourself.
Yes. What else does this movie get right?
It delves into regret. And it's funny because the main way it delves into the idea of regret is that Charlie regrets that he didn't get together with Carrie. Now, again, this is the Hugh Grant character. This is the Andie MacDowell character. But there's a scene where she's engaged to be married to another man and then does marry him. And during that period of time, Charlie says, I wish I'd rung you, but then you didn't ring me. And I think it all feels bewildering to him. It's like, wait, we had sex a few times. It was really nice. Why didn't I call you? Why didn't you call me? Like, what happened there?
It is weird.
It's weird.
At the end of the first meeting, I'm like, where's she going?
America.
I guess she's got to go to America.
I guess that's it.
Okay, I guess they didn't have email. I mean, they probably did.
They did not have email. They did not have Facebook. In fairness to them, like, it was possible to sort of like, be like, all right, well, I'm not going to do long distance calls for this. So anyway, this reminded me of the work on regrets of omission or regrets of inaction. We delved into this when we talked with Dan Pink and Vanessa Bonds on our episode about grand romantic gestures. And, Dan Pink has this terrific book, The Power of Regret. And one of the major themes in that book, which really is a good literature review of the scholarly literature, is he shows that lots of people have these romantic inaction regrets. Oh, I had this opportunity sometimes 40 years ago, and I deeply regret it. And I think he's captured the literature here really well. There's a bunch of studies in this space. One of the major findings is that inaction regrets hurt more than action regrets. Or in other words, we, on average, regret the things we didn't do more than the things we did.
Okay, so I didn't ask her out, and I still feel bad about that 20 years later.
That's right.
But I don't mind the fact that I asked Lauren out in 6th grade, and she was like,
and she rejected
get out of
you.
here.
That's right. Like somehow we're able to make sense of that. Now, a second major finding in this research literature is if you get a representative sample of Americans and you just look, if they just report spontaneously, what are your regrets? They report more romantic regrets than any other type of regret. They are more likely to spontaneously mention romantic regrets than career regrets or money regrets or health regrets or all the way down the line.
Yeah, that's fascinating that they end up being so prominent for people. Watching this movie, I thought a lot about Wedding Crashers. We're not going to do a recap of Wedding Crashers here, but it's very clear in that movie that the purpose of going to weddings as a guest is to hook up, to have short-term sexual relationships with as many people as you can. I think that's a common idea, a common juxtaposition you might see that, well, the wedding is there for this couple to join together for the purpose of having a long-term relationship, but everybody else gets to fool around and have their short-term relationships. And of course, in the research literature, this is a massive distinction between short-term and long-term relationships. What's cool about this movie is that this movie takes a perspective on weddings that I think aligns more closely with what you and I think, which is that the long-term, short-term distinction is a bit of a red herring, and that what's actually happening is, we see the long-term commitment to one person, and the other folks are just out there looking to initiate something. Who knows what direction it's going to go? I mean, sometimes they're very explicit, like, hey, maybe we'll meet our future wives and husbands here, like my friend's joking, going to crappy dive bars looking for their husbands. But it could happen, and it could also be a hookup. But the point is that you don't really know. And so I think, correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but the better way to think about how relationships work is that there's a process that people have to go through. And it starts with initial attraction, and then it moves through something ambiguous into a phase where you don't know where it's going to go. And maybe you initiate things and maybe you don't. And maybe it grows from there and maybe it doesn't. And then eventually maybe you get to some long-term thing, or it fizzles out somewhere along the way. And that's a useful way of thinking about the overall arc or trajectory of a relationship, that, some things end up being short and some things end up being long, but where you're meeting these people or even your intentions going in don't matter as much as, hey, does this thing have legs to it or not?
Yeah, is there such a thing as somebody saying, tonight, I absolutely only want a fling? And is there such a thing as there's no way I would get involved with somebody unless we were practically married? And I think there is some legitimacy. Those things exist. But most of us...
It can be done.
It can be done. But most of us, most of the time, are in a headspace somewhere that doesn't really fit into either of those categories. And it's something like this. I'm into this person. I'm eager to explore more. And so I'll go on a second date, and I'm attracted, and so I'll hook up a little bit. And if good, then continue. And if bad, then stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's only
Yeah.
somewhere along the way that you're like, whoa, we've actually started to build something kind of serious here.
And what this way of thinking also accounts for is the cases like the Bernard and Lydia, where it's like they're friends for a while and they don't really think of each other that way, but then they kind of have the first kiss and it's like a wow event.
Sure.
And now they're off to the races. Like, was that short-term mating? Was it long-term mating?
Yeah,
Is it
it does
like,
not
I don't know.
fit.
They were like friends for a while. Like, it doesn't work. But this way of thinking about people initiating relationships in this chaotic, often random way where you don't know where things are going, I think better captures what people go through in real life.
You know what is interesting about the wedding example is, I don't know if this has been studied. Maybe you have a sense of the literature on this, but there is like a friends of friends are vouched for
Yeah.
thing.
That's a great point.
Right? It's like if you're like here at a wedding, that means that like someone I love or the person I love's betrothed has invited you. And so some sense it's like it gets past some basic, like you're probably not a serial killer, right? Like you've got some of this basic security. And so,
Or at least I'll get a warning. Like,
I'll get a warning.
People
Yeah,
will
you're
warn
right.
me if this person is bad news.
that's right. So you're right that it's like partly that, you know, they're vouched for and partly that they're here and therefore people are going to protect me if they feel like I need it. But what I think probably does happen is I bet there are a lot of hookups at weddings. I bet guests really do get it on because it's like we're all kind of staying at the hotel and we've been up dancing and drinking and we're kind of vouched for. The question of whether that becomes a serious relationship or a short-term thing, like who knows? But it does seem like a good prospect, right? If you had to pick a place where maybe something might happen, it seems like it's better than many.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, Gareth and the others are onto something here. Do you have anything else in this category?
So there's research on this idea, sometimes called erotic plasticity, sometimes called sexual fluidity. There are subtle distinctions between these things. But I was reminded of these ideas because there's this odd scene where Fiona is talking to an older guest at one of the weddings. And the older guest asks, you know, is she a lesbian? Which is a weird question. And eventually Fiona says, I was a lesbian once at school, but only for about 15 minutes. I don't think it counts. Right. And look, she's clearly joking around. The question was kind of ridiculous. And this is playing on some stereotypes we have about female sexuality. But there's an interesting question here about the extent to which people in general, maybe women in particular, exhibit this sort of fluctuation in the people that they're attracted to, or even in their sexual orientation more generally. The key paper in this space, the first major paper in this space, was on this idea called erotic plasticity. So Roy Baumeister argued that the female sex drive is more malleable than the male sex drive in a few different ways, but one of them is that individual women will exhibit more variation across time than individual men will in their sexual behavior. And then Lisa Diamond, the other major player in this space who talks about sexual fluidity, what she finds is that fluidity is widespread, and she finds some evidence that women do this a bit more than men. I think the study that I found most definitive here was a pretty new study that it studied over 18,000 Americans in a representative sample, studied them over time, and it asked people to list their sexual orientation. And what they found in this study is that 11% of cisgender women changed their sexual identity from one wave of the survey to the next, whereas 6% of cisgendered men did. So this is not a huge number who are characterizing their overall sexual orientation differently over time, but to the degree that you do see it, cisgendered women are about twice as likely to say they did it than cisgendered men.
That's fascinating. I would have thought that those numbers would be higher, but I might be thinking about numbers that are specific to the youth.
Oh,
today.
yes, the numbers are higher. And in fact, that's something else that the movie kind of gets right. So to the degree that this like sort of throwaway line is
College,
correct,
right.
when she says, once at school for 15 minutes, that's exactly right. That among like 18 to 24-year-old adults, you see much higher rates.
It's going to be higher.
And especially among young women.
Yeah. Yep. Who among us? Misconceptions in this movie about attraction and relationships. I'll go first. Boy, everything about the time frames here is pretty bizarre.
It's pretty fast.
We're seeing moving from getting together for the first time to engaged in a matter of months in a few different cases. And but even the length of the engagements are shockingly quick for the 90s. Now, what's interesting is that the data on the length of time that people date before they get engaged and the length of time that they're engaged before they get married. Most of that data, it's actually not in the scientific literature. It's like published on these like wedding industry sites.
Interesting.
And ads.
Interesting.
Those are the folks that collect a lot of this data, which I just find kind of fascinating. And so it's really hard to know, exactly what was going on in the 90s. Like, it was probably quicker than today. The common advice today is like, your desired venue might be booked 2 years out. So, you really got to get on it. Okay. But even for people living in the 90s who were this age, people who were probably born in the 70s, 60s or 70s, you're talking about dating for multiple years before you consider getting engaged or even living together, which usually precedes getting engaged, which precedes getting married. So these things typically happen over the course of many months and years, not in the very short stretches of time that we're seeing in this movie. This is lightning speed.
It is lightning speed. It's interesting. A lot of these movies, including this one, are traditional in their aspirations. So again, this is about weddings.
Yeah,
even
really
the raunchy comedies, even some of the
until the end. I mean, the end.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll talk about this. The end is really intriguing. But go on.
No, yeah, but I think they don't want it just to be like, and then you had a boyfriend, and that was nice.
Yeah,
it has to be a wedding because I think there's like a wholesomeness and a traditionalness about these things. And you're right. I mean, I think just in the logistical, when is your venue likely to be available sense, these timelines are not viable.
Right, even in the 90s. All right, talk to me. What do you have?
Let me start with a quick one. I didn't understand why Charlie was so into Carrie. So this is the Hugh Grant character with the Andie MacDowell character. And I didn't... Look, she's very attractive. She's very pretty. She's very flirtatious. She's very sexually
very
forward.
Confident, yeah.
She is. She is. She has a lot of nice attributes. We didn't get to know her. I don't feel like I know her at all. I don't feel like Charlie knows her. But more to the point... Fiona, we find out late in the movie, has been in love with him the whole time. Right. Fiona is also beautiful, is very, very funny, huge personality, and Fiona's been there the whole time. Yeah. And I don't want to say like, well, of course he should have fallen for Fiona, although he should have. but the story,
I think this is a popular take.
Yeah, well,
he chose wrong.
He chose wrong. Yeah. But the reason I bring it up is because one thing that I think is dissatisfying in some of the movies we watch, and I include this one here, is it boils down to, well, Cupid gonna Cupid.
Yeah.
And we don't really, as the viewer, get a sense of like, well, why did he prefer that woman to the other women in his life? And I think that this is kind of a weakness. It doesn't actually set us up to understand what the foundation was of the relationship that made her so appealing to him.
I mean, I'll even go a step further on this, which is like most of what we see from Carrie, she's being shockingly cruel.
You know, it's funny. In the bio section at the top of the episode, I almost called her borderline sociopathic.
I mean, so it's interesting. Like, she takes him, knowing that he has a thing for her.
Yeah.
She takes him to try on wedding dresses for her wedding to someone else. Now, that one, I felt complicatedly about because, look, he's a willing participant in this, okay? Yes. If you want to go along with this, like, that's up to you, buddy. I don't think I would choose that. Although, I don't know. Have I been in that situation before? Who am I to say? But the one that really got me was when it's at her wedding, and she says in this sneering way in front of the whole crowd, someone told me here confidentially, it was confidential, by the way, someone told me here confidentially that if things didn't work out with Hamish, that he'd step in, and I just wanted to say, thanks, and I'll keep you posted. Like, that's just like being a jerk.
Yeah.
So I really, I don't quite get it. It feels like a British sketch of an American.
Yeah, you're right.
But not a real person, and not a person that I liked very much for much of this movie. Yeah.
On the other side of this equation, there's Fiona.
Yeah.
And as far as we can tell, she has been hopelessly in love with Charlie for years, maybe a decade. It's not exactly clear how long.
I think it's a long time.
And he has had no idea. And what's really clear to her is he is just not interested.
Yep.
And so the question is, from the perspective of relationship science, how plausible is it that she would remain hopelessly in love with Charlie all this time, despite knowing definitively that he is not interested in her? And the answer is, this isn't very likely.
This isn't very likely.
Yeah, and the key player here is Dorothy Tenov and her work on limerence. And the idea is that you need a blend of hope and uncertainty. Right?
Yeah.
You need to have this belief that the partner might reciprocate, and then you need to have this uncertainty about whether the reciprocation truly exists. And that's how you get this feeling of intense, almost like anxious passion for someone. But she knows that he's not into it. So what that means is she doesn't have any hope. And according to the literature, as best we understand it, she would have given up on him a long time ago.
Yeah, because he's not really giving her anything.
Nothing.
And I would buy the idea that she would, maybe maintain a little crush over time. I mean, that seems plausible. But the idea that nobody else would be able to hold a candle to him under that situation, that is pretty uncommon.
Yeah.
One other thing is that in this movie, I think all the couples except for the Bernard and Lydia, I'm talking about Bernard and Lydia a lot.
Yeah.
Remember, that's wedding number 2.
They were the ones who had been friends, and she thought there was no way, but he's good in the sack, so now they're all in.
That's right. It is bolt of lightning. I mean, we get a cool quote about bolt of lightning in this movie, but it is bolt of lightning for, I think, every other couple that gets together in this movie. And, it happens. It absolutely happens that you see somebody and immediately you're like, wow, I've never felt anything like this. And it's a minority of cases. I don't know what to say. So as a reflection of what happens, the balance is probably exactly backwards in this movie. It's probably more like 20% bolt of lightning, 80% slow burn.
Good cinema, but not a representation of how this stuff actually works.
Yeah. All right. So are we okay with this? There are some interesting moral quandaries that come up in this movie. Why don't you take this first?
Let me start before we get to quandaries with a note of praise. The movie is very sex positive, especially for women. And there's that kooky scene where Carrie is listing all 33.
It's very funny.
It's very funny. Very funny. All 33 of her sex partners, including like this guy and then this guy's father. And I mean, just like a bunch of stuff. And how does Hugh Grant's character react? He's just impressed. He's a little intimidated.
I was laughing very hard at this.
Yeah, it's very funny. He's a little intimidated, but there's no feel in the movie that there's something gross about a woman who's having lots of sex. And I appreciated it for that, especially 30 some odd years ago.
Yeah, and it feels like it's like, Americans like, wow.
Oh, you're right.
right. But it's not bad.
That's why you need an American girl.
It's not bad. I mean, again, not to point out other movies, but the movie Clerks came out the same year, and I don't know how many folks have seen Clerks or remember Clerks, but the central plot point in the movie revolves around the discovery that somebody's partner has actually had more sex than he knew about, and it is devastating and crushing to him. And and it's played for laughs, and what a contrast.
Yeah, totally. This is the opposite of that.
Compared to that. It is the absolute opposite. So I agree. I noticed that too and thought that was pretty cool.
Okay, so now on to quandaries. There's a couple here that I find interesting. So one thing that's kind of quick is for a movie that's this obsessed with weddings it's weirdly dismissive of marital vows, especially with regard to the Carrie character.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's like, what do you, it's like, and I said earlier that it's like, oh, these things are kind of oddly traditional in terms of like, for sure you want the marriage. But Carrie's character, now again, we're supposed to like her, I think. I mean, she's the one that she's the one that the main character is really into, and the happy ending is because they finally get together. But she's incredibly cavalier about marrying somebody, engaged to somebody, sleeping with somebody else, then marrying that first person, but then just being like, nah, it didn't work out, and now she's going to end up with this other guy. It's just a little surprising.
Yeah, it is very strange. I found especially strange the sleeping with Charlie at wedding number 2 when she is engaged, and it's kind of like ho hum whatever.
Totally. No big deal.
I mean, on everybody's part, it's
You're right.
not. It's just like. It's not like this is like a new thing that you would also be considered cheating on somebody if you were engaged and slept with somebody else. That's not a new
married.
idea that arose since 1994. We've had that idea around for a long time. I thought it was also pretty compelling, the role of the gay couple in this movie.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it was kind of unspoken. I think there is a lot of debate online about whether the friends knew exactly
not
that
clear.
these two were together. It's a little ambiguous. I just thought it was there from the opening scene. But then again, like reading online, I think people watching this 30 years ago were like, well, that's interesting, isn't it?
They're friends.
Yeah, right. But I thought that was pretty cool to have that in here. And then again, it's like, well, we're killing off one of the gay characters, all right? But at the same time, this incredibly moving eulogy. I mean, the most moving part of the whole movie,
by far,
is one man talking about another man. And boy, again, 1994. Cool.
I agree with you. This is 430 some odd years ago, like very appealing gay representation. Both men are extremely cool, appealing characters. Their relationship is very meaningful, obviously very serious. I agree with you that if I want to quibble about it, it's a little awkward that we just didn't have much of a sense that they were together. They didn't peck each other on the lips at all and so forth. If I had to list a second quibble, it's that there's a sense in which the trauma endured by the gay characters is in the service of the personal growth of the protagonist, the straight protagonist. Right. And the key thing is, Charlie, when he's leaving the funeral where Matthew has given this beautiful eulogy, he says, surely if that service shows anything, is that there is such a thing as a perfect match. Now, he is commenting about their relationship, Gareth and Matthew's relationship, but also he's having a big moment here where he thinks, I shouldn't settle. It's possible to find somebody truly perfect. And again, it's a little clunky, I guess, that it's the gay people's trauma that helps him realize that.
That is kind of clunky. I agree with that. In terms of quotes, I want to return to some of the friend network ideas that we talked about earlier on. So this is a good moment where Charles is talking to Hen, his ex, who he will later marry.
Almost.
Almost. Almost. And he says,
perhaps you were right, Hen. Perhaps we should have got married.
God, no. Marry you, and I've had to marry your friends. And I'm not quite sure I could take Fiona.
Fiona loves you.
Fiona calls me duckface.
Well, I never heard that.
Look, darling, come to lunch soon. Give me a ring, okay? Oh, still cute. How's duckface?
Good form, actually. Not too mad.
oh my God, they're really funny. How's Duckface? So, but the thing is, poor Duckface. Like she's right in the sense that it really does matter how the friends get along with the romantic partner.
That's a good point.
Because it makes things worse if these folks don't like each other. And so this one actually really recent paper, it just came out, showing that when your partner has a negative opinion of your friends, not only is that bad for how you feel about your relationship with your friends, it's bad for how you feel about your relationship with your partner. So it's just bad all around.
Yeah, so she was right to be concerned that if your best friend thinks I'm duck-faced, that this isn't going to work.
Yeah. It's is not good. What do you have?
I think my favorite quote that we haven't touched on yet is from a reading at the first wedding, and this comes from 1 Corinthians. And the line is, if I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am as a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And what I love so much about that is Gareth goes, good point. It's like some sort of incomprehensible thing. But I also like it not just for Gareth's dismissive comment. I also like it because I think it offers a pretty good perspective on the film itself. So remember the thing that they're kind of taking down. It's like, if I speak with the tongues of men and of angels. So basically, if you're like clever with your words, and I think that's a whole lot of what these friends are like, right?
Yeah,
they're
great
really
point.
Good
They're very clever.
Yeah, they're very clever, but it's sort of a way of distance from their actual emotions. And in the end, it's like, no, there's love, and that's better. And I think it's a very good way for them to get those ideas into the film without making it heavy-handed.
It's a very British rom-com. This is what it is. Okay, what do we wish we knew? Take it.
Okay. The first thing I wish we knew is how we should respond when a close friend of ours tells us they've been in love with us for years. And again, I'm talking here about Fiona. This is the part where she finally confides, I've been in love with you for a long time. He says, oh, are you interested in someone? And she says,
it's always been you. Since first we met. Oh, so many years ago. I knew the first moment. Across a crowded room. On the lawn, in fact. Doesn't matter. Nothing either of us can do on this one. Such is life. Friends isn't bad, Friends is quite something.
Oh, Fee. It's not all easy, is it?
No.
So it's a really powerful scene. And what you can't tell when you're just listening is when he says, oh, Fee, it's not all easy, is it? He reaches out, he gives her hand a squeeze. I think he got it right. But I have to say that I don't know of any
impressed.
research. I'm impressed too. I don't know of any research on this. And I don't really know what to do. He didn't say very much. He just expressed sympathy, but that's kind of awkward maybe from the person who's actually causing the pain, but it's not his fault. So I just wish we knew a little bit more about how we're supposed to respond when someone we're close with is in love with us and we don't love them that way. What is best practice?
I mean, it's certainly best practice for like being responsive and like being a good friend. And I kind of think that's why the moment works. And that whatever awkwardness he's experiencing, he just, I don't know, he's a classy guy.
I think I agree with you that most of us would have gone on and on and on. Too much sympathy, maybe some excuses, a lot of apologies. And
a lot of you don't. Nah, you don't really.
Right. It would be more
really
comfortable.
invalidating.
You're right. It would be more comfortable for him if he could just be like, nah, I'm not that special. Yeah. And no, you're right. He's just there for her. It feels like he got it right. I just have no idea if there's any research on this at all.
Well, another thing that I liked was what are we to make of how they close it out? This idea, like, do you think not being married to me might be something that you could consider for the rest of your life? Yeah. And they're clearly committed enough to have a kid together. That final shot, we see they have a kid and he is not wearing a wedding band. Oh. And it's a really interesting idea. What does the wedding do exactly. Now, there's been a literature for a long time that said marriage is the thing.
Yeah.
Marriage is the commitment. That's the thing that gets you the benefits. That's the thing that, we need to be encouraging people to do, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to know, in the 21st century, in, the United States, in the West, or throughout the world, how much is it really marriage? Or can we commit to not marrying somebody, but at least be committed enough to raise children with them? And I know this idea is becoming more popular in different parts of the world. Are we sure that the quote unquote benefits of marriage don't extend to folks like Carrie and Charlie here?
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a lot of cultural variation in these things. So I did a couple sabbaticals in Holland, and marriage rates there are much lower. It's not at all strange to have people that are life partners. They've been together 20 years. They're like, no, we never got married. What's the point? And in the U.S., we still place a lot more emphasis on it than they do in some places in Western Europe. Is that good or bad for the long-term longevity of the relationship, for the happiness of the partners? You're right. We don't really know.
All right. Anything else in this category?
The other thing I wondered about is, how is it that people first say, I love you? That's a phrase that carries a tremendous weight. And it's something that, you and your research, when you think about milestones in a relationship, the words, I love you, it's a really big one.
Right.
And it's hard to say. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly how you feel, but then you know how you feel, and how do you say it? And of course, I'm thinking about this because of that hilariously
really
awkward speech that Charles
David
gives.
Cassidy.
Yeah, he's he has to quote David Cassidy, right? I think I love you, right? That line from the Partridge Family. And he goes on, and it's totally discursive and clunky and awkward and also adorable. But how do people do this? And do they get it right? And how do they decide where and when they're going to say this stuff? Or is it spontaneous? I don't think we know that much about that, and it's a pretty important thing.
It's one of these classic, we study people well after they've already said these things.
Good point. Yeah.
On this podcast, we rate movies from 1 to 5 stars. I give 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which I just saw the first time, 4 stars. This movie's funny. It's funny. Really, really funny. It's big-hearted, and I kind of like how it's getting us to think about the relationship, the commitment to another person, what another person means to us separately from the wedding and the marriage, and to see how all these things are embedded in networks of friends. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. What about you?
I was very close to giving this 5 stars.
Yeah, it's close.
I ended up at 4. The problem really is there's just too much lacking in the Carrie character, both I think in the acting, but also in the ability to convey what's appealing about her and why our protagonist is so into her. But I really was close to 5. It is so funny. It is truly moving, deep feels, laugh out loud funny. And again, we haven't really talked much about the Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean type performance, but there's this scene where his father, Gerald, he's officiating one of the weddings, and he's just perfected British humor, and I laughed and laughed and laughed.
Yeah, it's pretty good. On this podcast, we also rate movies on Rust Bolts. Now, the Rust Bolt is named after Eli's advisor, the late, great Carol Rust Bolt, pioneer of close relationships research, with 5 stars indicating a near-perfect depiction of the nature of close relationships. Eli, where are you on Rust Bolts for 4 Weddings and a Funeral?
Here I roll back to 3. There is a lot of good insight in the movie. Again, the central relationship falters for me in a way that's kind of a bummer. Also, we don't get much clue at all about how people sustain relationships, including I could imagine a pretty terrific movie about Gareth and Matthew, but that's not the movie we have before us. I end up at 3 stars.
And I, too, struggled with this. I edged towards 4, but landed back at 3 for similar reasons. Again, it's boy, I think what it's showing about these friends is really interesting. It feels spot on to me. And then we get these other weird time frame things, and I agree with you. I'm not so sure about the central couple here. I'm here shipping Charlie and Fiona like most of the internet.
Yeah.
This has been the Love Factually podcast. Now get ready, because next week we are going to be releasing an episode that's actually not in our typical schedule because we're joining the Pods Fight Poverty campaign.
Yes.
And we're releasing an episode on the Monday just before Giving Tuesday as a part of this campaign. And the movie we'll be releasing, let's just say there's a lot of giving in a final scene. I can guarantee you've seen it before just in time for the holidays.
This is one that no matter how many times I think I will not cry at the end, I nevertheless am crying at the end.
Yeah, so we will be watching that, and Eli, I look forward to watching you cry.
The Love Factually podcast is produced and edited by Paul Eastwick and Eli Finkel, featuring music from Andrew Fraker and Sons. If you'd like to support the show, don't forget to rate and subscribe in your podcast app, and please reach out to us at lovefactuallypod@gmail.com. To learn more about the research we discussed in this episode, find the notes on our Substack. That's lovefactually.substack.com.